Yeah, joining us now is a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. So I got a question for you.
Happy Father's Day.
Oh, same to you, sir. I appreciate that. So this $80 billion has been pared down from $200 billion just a couple of weeks ago that came out. They said, listen, we need $200 billion. Congress said not a chance. So they've got it down to $80 billion. They're saying this is for operations and a few domestic policies. I think things like birthing and pay, stuff like that. But, you know, in recent past, you've called the DOW, the defense industry, and your colleagues war pimps, portfolio warriors. You said that you can't get your way out of things by throwing money at the military. You have a very fiscal, conservative policy. You're very honest about it. Does this $80 billion ask fit into those summations, or do you see this as a more legitimate ask for money? Because it's $80 billion on top of the basically trillion they got last year.
Well, of course, you always ask for the most in the beginning, and then you know what you can do to come down. When I raised the speed limit in Tennessee, I think I asked for about 90, and I ended up taking 70, and that's what we got. So I get that. But I think the negotiations are still going on within Congress of what we're going to see. But I guess what you got to really ask yourself is, what's the price you put on peace? The Democrats were critical of President Trump and the initial bomb run of Iran that was weeks before the war, when we basically encased their nuclear capabilities in a mountain, which they're still there, from what I understand. And so I think the devil's in the details of what's in this contract. With the Iranians, we know they're radicals. We know their belief system. Do we really want their hands on a nuclear weapon? And what would that do in the Middle East? And I think that's why you saw a lot of Muslim-leaning countries supported our efforts in taking out Iran, because they see them as a threat, and they want to embrace. I mean, let's just be honest. Greed is a motivator. They want to embrace the dollar, and they know if we're in a nuclear war, it's all over.
Well, I mean, picking up on that, you know, greed is a motivator, and the devil is in the details. The details, I think, you know, they're being hashed out right now, you know, with our vice president. Talk to me about what types of, I think you could describe them as concessions, maybe, or accommodations to Iran should or shouldn't be made at this moment during these discussions. And, you know, I guess to draw your attention specifically to, you know, allowing Iran to sell its oil. You know, that would require grants and licenses from us. I mean, is that something that should be on the table?
Absolutely. Of course, we're exporting energy. The best course of action for America to take is to tell the Middle East they can eat their sand and they can eat their dadgum oil, and we need to get our production. We're exporting, but the problem is we cannot we can't manufacture the quality of gasoline in certain areas that we need. We need more refineries is what we need. And with Lee Zeldin at the head of EPA right now, I think we're moving in that direction, but that's going to take some time. You can't just do that overnight. There are local regulations and EPA rules and regulations that are in there for good reason. So I think that's going to take a little bit of time. But again, I think it also shows one thing, too, is that the president's trust in J.D. Vance, having him out there negotiating.
Winning the redistricting fight, Democrats remain in a strong position to take control of the House. Listen, I know anytime you ask somebody how are you feeling about the midterms, the obvious answer is we're feeling good about the midterms, but I know that you like to play it straight with us. So let's look forward to the midterms. There's been a lot of times we thought a red wave was coming. It ended up being a pink splash. Now the Democrats think they got that blue wave mounting. Yeah. How do you see things shaping up? And is there anything that Republicans in vulnerable positions or that are running can do to maybe start shifting some of the tides their direction?
I think it boils down to messaging, ma'am. We do a terrible job of messaging. I yell at my colleagues about it. You know, they made fun of me for 8 years, and now a lot of them are asking me for advice on the internet and on what they can do to get their face on this thing a little more. And frankly, we need to start gearing up. We've done some great things. The Big Beautiful Bill had some wonderful things that President Trump put in there, and we've honestly just done a terrible messaging job of telling people what we've done in Congress. And I think that's the key to it all right there. And it's, you know, and I think it's going to be, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. You're going to see gasoline prices drop considerably. Of course, they're not going to go up. They're not going to drop as fast as they went down because the oil companies are greedy, but that's for another show. But the truth is that we've done a pretty good job of doing some things that we said we're going to do. We've locked the border down. We found they lost 300,000 children during the Biden administration, which some of the media refused to cover and still refuses to cover, and yet we found about 150,000 of those kids. You know, you see what's going on in Minnesota and New York and California with the fraud, and that's all under Democrat-controlled areas, and those are things we're fighting, and the Democrats are that. And I just think, the Save America Act, I believe it's called. But anyway, you know, you don't know what I'm talking about. You've got to show a birth certificate to play Little League baseball in America. And yet now here we are. The Democrats are fighting us, saying it's going to cost millions of people the right to vote. Well, those millions of people happen to be illegals and dead. So those are the two categories that they're blocking. So, and we're doing a terrible job at messaging that. For some reason, we don't want to get our hands dirty. And then you look at what's happened in New York. They're electing literally openly Marxist people. And that's where the Democrat Party's going. You see Goldman and some of those other guys, they're hugely liberal. They're all friends of mine, but dadgum, they're not communist. But they're electing communists now in some of these fringe areas, and that is becoming mainstream Democrat Party. It's not, it's like Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party, they left me. And they're not leaving a lot of room for it. And of course, the Charlie Kirk effect, the young kids on these college campuses are still fired up. And every dadgum one of those polls, though, has never showed Trump leading, ever, hardly. And yet, what does he do? He wins every dadgum time. And so the only poll I'm concerned about is the one on Election Day.
Congressman, so you mentioned a lot of things. Messaging was your big thing. You don't think the Republicans are very good at messaging. From what I can see, Democrats are all doing the same thing. They're running against Donald Trump. That seems to be what's working for them. That seems to be how they get, do fundraising. So they're going to I'm going to assume that's what they're doing, anti-Trump. So you mentioned a lot of things. You mentioned gasoline, the economy, you mentioned fraud, the Marxists, immigration, crime.
I think they should ignore the so-called traditional media in this country because, again, they've always picked a loser on this thing. I think, people are just berated with the negative news about Trump and everything. And yet, and Joe Biden, they act like he was the greatest thing in the world. Kamala Harris is a great orator, according to them. So, I think we've really missed the boat on all this stuff. And remember this, Republican Congress won. We're about a 3-person lead through the elections, maybe more, maybe less. The Lord takes some out occasionally, and then we put some people back in. But Trump won overwhelmingly over our country, and because of the Trump agenda, of the things that I mentioned, of strong national security, of border security, of finding those dadgum kids that were lost at our border under the Biden administration. And yet, and for some reason, we all tend to run in 100 different directions. Case in point on messaging, this is one of my pet peeves, and I'm going to get calls on it. But the week of the president's State of the Union address, it was wonderful. It was a world-class speech, and he covered so many areas. And what did the Republicans message on that week? Appliances. So we got to get our head out of the sand and start going on following what Trump's lead, because he hasn't lost us yet. And overwhelmingly, when he makes when he makes an endorsement, they go. I've always said endorsements, you never pick up friends, just the enemies. But somehow Trump seems to pull it off, and overwhelmingly he does. And I'm not running from his endorsement, I can tell you that.
Real quick, Congressman, I just want to do a follow-up on the first question I asked you. This $80 billion supplemental ask from the DOW, are you saying...
I think the other countries are going to have to kick in some. And if we see that, I think that, again, what's the price tag you put on nuclear security? And do you want those lunatics to have nukes is the question. Yeah. And the Democrats, they just want to get in power. They don't care if a war breaks out. They don't care about you or me. Yeah. They just want to stay in power. And we don't need to fall into that trap.
I'll tell you right now, you talked about messaging. I think you should copyright dadgum and just put it on a mug or something. I think you'd raise a lot of campaign money with that. I like it.
I actually have a hat that says dadgum Patriot on it, and we sold over 1,000 the first week I put them out, and then some knucklehead in China bootlegged them and put it out on the internet. And I said, don't need to buy it from those knuckleheads. You need to buy it from this knucklehead.
Congressman Tim Burchett, thank you for bringing some Southern hospitality to the show. We surely appreciate you.
Thank you, and all the dads.
Roger Ailes, a former Republican political consultant, was hired to oversee the network's launch. Purpose: created to serve as an alternative to what Murdoch and Ailes perceived as a liberal bias in mainstream media. Ownership: it is a subsidiary of Fox Corporation and part of the broader Fox News media portfolio, which includes Fox Business, Fox Nation, and Fox News Digital. Positioning and reputation. Ideology: the network is widely identified as being ideologically conservative and pro-Republican. While it provides news reporting, it is best known for its opinion and commentary programming. Audience: it is consistently one of the most watched cable news networks in the United States and holds high levels of trust among Republican and conservative viewers. Criticism: throughout its history, the network has faced criticism from researchers and media observers regarding its political bias, the accuracy of its reporting, and its role in influencing U.S. political discourse. It has been involved in several high-profile controversies and legal challenges, most notably a 2023 settlement with Dominion Voting Systems regarding false election fraud claims. Programming. Content: the channel broadcasts 24/7, mixing traditional news segments with analysis and opinion-based talk shows. Popular shows: the network has featured long-running programs like Fox and Friends, Hannity, and Gutfeld. Are you looking for information on a specific program, recent news coverage, or perhaps the history of its influence in American politics?